I'm thoroughly addicted. This is a strange thing to say at the beginning of the stream. I'm thoroughly addicted to Dragon's Dogma. My voice is a bit hammered today. You may hear a bit more background noise here and there. Deal with it. Sorry, this is what I mean to say is there's like nothing I can really do. Today we're gonna be doing some interesting things. Some interesting things to talk about. I'll get into the schedule in just a moment. Today is a sad day, or it was yesterday. I don't know if you guys know who Akira Toriyama is, but they made Dragon Ball Z. They made, the entire Dragon Ball series. They were I think the original character concept designer for the entire Dragon Quest series as well. It's why their designs seem very familiar. Apparently, they were also the lead character designer for Chrono Trigger. So their work is influential. Dragon Ball, I know a lot of us like to meme on it, but Dragon Ball was one of the most interesting works created that effectively started the entire shonen genre, right? We wouldn't have shonen any series today if it wasn't for Dragon Ball. And specifically, it's that style that he used where a lot of the narrative was like told through just the images alone. It was a very narrative light, actually, manga. If you actually read through the pages, you would often go through pages where there would be like no words. It was more of a visual treat, and it set the pace for that kind of like visual storytelling to be done through the medium, right? Where before, I think it was very, very heavy on dialogue. Things were just explained all the time. In Dragon Ball, a lot of it was just put down into images, into sequences of like actions that the characters would like take that would then tell you a story. And we have all the classic scenes from Dragon Ball, all the memes about it. Piccolo going to get his driver's license, Goku learning how to change like a diaper or something. But you also have those like really cool moments, right? When he's like standing in like the snowy field, Goku, with his like, again, his really cool stylistic jacket, just like letting it flow in the wind as he's about to face off with another Saiyan to save his new home, right? Like, and through pure visual storytelling, you get this sense that, the invader, he feels absolutely afraid of this monster, of, the original, Saiyan. Of the first Saiyan on the like planet, just standing there, imposingly staring at him, holding his really cool tracksuit jacket. I still look back fondly on Dragon Ball as like a case study on like how to do really interesting, really cool character designs, how to do really cool, interesting visual, attacks and effects, how to really sort of like portray action sequences and even just character actions across longer sequences. With like with continuity from the previous scene, right? Again, it's a very memeable show, but without those memes and without what it was, and without even like the mistakes and all of the successes of the show, we wouldn't have had as a thrilling of a scene, I think, and we wouldn't have had much of a very casual, I think, scene of enjoyers of that type of like medium. I remember being like a kid. And the only shows that you could watch, on like those like anime TV shows, I think it was like four kids, I think. 4 Kids and Funimation or like something. Would be like Dragon Ball, Full Metal Alchemist at some point, but like it like took a while. But Dragon Ball was always the like staple. Then they added like a couple more. But everyone that I knew that was even like casually into it, which was a small amount back then, was really into like Dragon Ball and then Naruto, right? And it sort of sets the stage for everything that came forward. So, fortunately, he passed away. It's very unfortunate news. A lot of artists that I really enjoyed looking at their works for, so kind of like slowly disappearing. I think last year or 2 years ago it was Kim Jung-gi, and now this year it's Akira Toriyama, right? Because again, there's a particular style to it, right? That I think, because it's seen so much, it is overused. But there's a visual storytelling style that I think is very unique to that series that I think actually works well. Even though I do think, I'm not like the largest fan of like Dragon Ball, there are sequences where I look at it and I go, this is the coolest anime sequence yet, or like the coolest sequence in like a manga page yet, that I still haven't really seen done elsewhere. And like some things come like close, but some of it is like, it just oozes style, right? So I'm sad that we'll never get to see it again. Apparently he was still working on it, so yeah, just Rest in peace, old man. It's good stuff. I enjoy your stuff very, 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 very much. It's telling of that passage of the time. As I get older, so does the world. You know what I mean? I think when you get so wrapped up in your own bubble of life, you're so wrapped up in your own space in like life that you forget that the world around you is aging too. And you look around and you see like everybody's getting older, right? Your friends, your family. I mean, even those people that you know, just in like life, everybody gets older, and so it's interesting. The thing that I hate the most about getting older is the fact that everyone else gets older too. If I got older, I don't mind, right? I would want to live in a world where I'm the only one who has to suffer the consequences of like old age. But to see the people around me get like older, the people that I admire, the people whose like things that I enjoy, you know, even just people that I know, it's just sad. It brings like a sad tinge of like, oh man, it's the sorry, I'm so gassy. It's the impending mortality of like life that really eats away at me. In lighter news, Avatar, the live action, is getting a season 2. My wife and I watched a bit of the first season, and then we skimmed the rest of it. There's something weird about the show. Like, I guess it's just hard because like, how do you convert like a cartoon that has a very, very different type of pacing, and it's made for a different type of audience, into a TV show, right? But in particular, I noticed that they changed some of the character motifs to be much more exaggerated and like much more. Sorry, not motifs. Some of the character motivations and some of the character personalities to be much more exaggerated and much more. It feels like it's made for TV versus like it was for the cartoon, right? Like Katara, she's surprisingly weaker as like a personality like type of person in the TV show than she was in the cartoon. Sokka is surprisingly much more confident and like much more respected than he was in the actual cartoon. It's strange. The pacing is interesting. Episode 2 or 3, when they introduced like every single character, I was like, whoa, way too fast. It's one of those. It's one of those weird things where, because live action has so many budget constraints, it's like, how do you do it in a way that still follows like a slower pace? Because I think Avatar, each book was like 26 episodes or something, or like 23 or something. Like, it felt a lot longer, and it really took its time going through certain sequences. There was a lot of times where the things that like happened were just slower paced, right? We just had a lot of like, you know, like there's an entire episode dedicated to them getting Toph, a single character, right? But I'm pretty sure in the live action at some point, or if they haven't already, because again, I just skimmed through the rest of the episodes, they'll probably just have her come in with like everyone else too. You know what I mean? And so I'm kind of curious how that show is going to go. Some of the scenes were also kind of like weird. Like you have like the Fire Nation attacking the air nomads, right? And this is not really spoilers. It's kind of spoilers for Avatar the book series. I mean for the cartoon series, but in the live action, it happens in the first episode within like 10 minutes. So it's not some major spoilers now. When the Fire Nation attacks, it's during the comments, right? I remember the cartoon like showing their power to be way more bombastic. Like a single firebender was like a monster. Like he could send like a typhoon of like fire across the entire field, right? The only cool thing that they showed during that attack was when the firebenders used every firebender was able to fly using fire, which I think by that point was established as like a thing that only the like top firebenders could like do due to the immense control that you need to like have, right? And then their attacks just seemed very underwhelming. The air nomad fighting was like pretty cool in some cases, and in like other cases, like some of the characters just like died out of nowhere, and I was like, oh man. Like the old man who was Aang's best friend, who I keep forgetting his like name. He always like his attacks were initially cool, but then it diverged from the cartoon in a way that I think didn't show the level of his power, and also I think it doesn't hit as well when you think about it from the perspective of like what is like the air nomads system of morality, right? Because because again, this is now heavy spoilers, because we learned that the air nomads are a very peaceful sort, right? And that Aang, you know, up until that point in his teaching, was taught about the very non-violent side of being like an airbender, right? They're very spiritual. He's very much about like peace and like love and just making sure that like things are like safe and like, you know, good, right? He never learned about what it means to like eventually have to, you know, exercise his power in times of need, right? Aang only really discovers that, understands that, and tries that at the very end when he does the most unspeakable thing that he could do to a fellow bender, to Lord Ozai. Was it Lord Ozai? I forget his name too. When he took away his like powers of bending, right? And so that scene where they discover Gyatso's body, and Gyatso's body is like surrounded by the bones of like, you know, dead firebenders. I'm sad that they didn't keep that gravity of that scene. I'm glad that they included like the reality of what happens when you attack a bunch of air nomads, and there'd be bodies of like children and adults, and like everyone would be dying. And at least they showed the air nomads being like burnt to like a crisp, right? Like that's at least something to at least show just how deadly firebenders are. And especially during that like one scene where the guy, I forget his like, name already, where he like the guy who was captured and was brought to like in front of the Fire Lord and was like just like melted down. That really showed the cruelty, at least from the Fire Lord's perspective, their cruelty, which I think they did very, very well. But they never really were able to capture the gravity and I think the power of an airbender very, very well immediately in that open sequence. You had some cool moves, but you never saw them actually actively like be a serious threat. When we see inside the cartoon, like no, like when they could fight, airbending was actually just as deadly as the others. And it was also huge because it was like that feeling of like, wow, like all this time Aang was saying air nomads are like peaceful, like obviously they were cut down, and so obviously it was like, well, they probably just tried to lay down their arms and they were just cut down in like peace. And then Aang sees it and is like, wait, there's like bodies everywhere, not just of airbenders but of firebenders too, like dozens of them around Gyatso. And then in the live action, he just knocks down a couple of firebenders. They're not dead, right? Clearly some of them are just like, you know, like they're injured. Then the guy comes in and burns them down, and that's it. And I'm like, it just feels so, I don't know. The live action feels very, very unimpactful compared to the cartoon itself of Avatar. I'm kind of sad that it's going that way. It feels very weird because it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like a made-for-TV thing, right? But it feels like a made-for-TV in that weird way that Netflix makes things for TV. Netflix makes things for TV in a way that is guaranteed to make money and not necessarily to carry some creative vision. Except for some shows, which is strange. I've heard some shows are really, really good. Like the Samurai with Blue Eyes, that ninja anime, Ninja Kamui, and some other things. I don't know why, but ninjas and samurai are like a huge topic now. They're like a hot genre in like shows now, so it's interesting to see. But usually when you watch a Netflix thing, it feels very sort of like, it has moments where it's like approaching something cool, but they never know how to get there. And it always feels like they have to be held back for some reason. And my theory is that reason is almost always because of advertising, because of like, you know, making money, because of trying to sell content that to a wider audience without tripping some like, you know, some rules or like laws. And it's interesting because I think those shows can work. I think shows that are very, very crazy or like wild can actually work. There's a show on Netflix from Korea, from South Korea called Somebody? I think it might be called Somebody. Yes, Somebody. That show is incredibly dark. Within the first scene, like we see, and again, content warnings. We see a scene of, you know, the main antagonist like choking somebody out in a bathtub, right? And like, you know, presumably, I think the assumption was that they sexually assaulted them, presumably. But it was like, just like, it's crazy. And they show everything, and they show like, you know, people's eyes getting cut, and like, they're like, you know, body parts being like sliced like open. And shows like that, I think still do very, very well. But we only see sort of like that in like pockets of it. But for other shows like Avatar and stuff, it's like, oh, like, you're not allowed, like, you're fine showing a person burning, but you're not fine sort of like going to the conclusion that the cartoon did, and showing Gyatso sort of showing off the entire power and like what it means to be like an airbender master. against like even like your average rank and file firebender troop, and basically like demolishing them, right? Because again, I don't think we'll get that very impactful scene that was in the cartoon where his body's surrounded by like like dozens of like firebenders bodies too. I doubt that'll actually happen. And it's sad because again, it would have shown that sort of like growth that like Aang needed to like see, that Aang needed to like understand that sometimes when you have power, you have to use it, and sometimes you have to use it to defend what's like right versus wrong, right? So it's gonna be fascinating to see how the show evolves. I'm surprised they got a season 2 and 3. It must be that the numbers were really really good, because as far as I can tell, and just don't quote me on this because this is from different sources that I've had just access to. It seems like Netflix only decides how many seasons a show gets by the numbers that it gets. So there's a show that I really enjoyed. I think it's Inspector Koo. It was called Koo. That I think ended after 2 seasons, but they wanted one more. There's a lot of shows that ended after like 1 or 2 seasons, but for some reason Avatar gets season 2 and 3, and I'm like, oh well, okay. No, it doesn't seem to be like super stellar, and it's like I'd rather just watch the cartoon. And I did hear actually, I think Avatar is getting a new cartoon. Dante Basco was thinking of signing on to a new role. Avatar remake? I think that was a remake. But there was like there was something like Dante Basco was apparently going to reprise his role of Zuko in some Avatar thing. So like Avatar just seems to be like a very hot thing, but in general, like you have other ways to like watch it that I think is better than the live action. So I'm very surprised that they went ahead with that choice of like even renewing it for seasons 2 and 3 onwards. But today is not just talking. Okay, that's all the news that I had to like tell you about. I also have no song for you today. Well, I have some songs, but it's just things that you've heard before. I think. Actually, let me check. Is there anything new? I usually save, like, I don't have, like, my Spotify playlist is, like, one thing. But, oh, actually, yeah, there was one song that I was listening to that I was like, I think I need to show you this. Let me think about the song. I'm trying to figure out the, like, name. Wait, it's on my Spotify. Sorry, give me 1 second. So if you don't know, if this is your first time, we usually always play at least one song that I'm showing you that I've been listening to that I want to show you guys. And I've been listening a lot to this artist again because I really really enjoy their music. I think their music is extremely good, and I in particular their style. There's something about their style and the way that they take composition. And it's the way that they mix different genres in their composition, and it's the way that they do storytelling in their songs that I think is just so amazing. This song is Transform by Daniel Caesar, who is an artist that is is in my playlist is massive. So I just let it go. I don't even shuffle it. I just let it go, right? And it's finally looped back around after like 2 years, and so it's finally looped all the way back around because I rarely use Spotify now. I just don't really listen to music too often because I'm so busy just doing things now. I used to do it a lot when I had to commute to like work for like 2 hours, and because for 2 hours, what are you gonna do on the bus, right? All you really can do is read a book, listen to music, and that's all I ever did. I went through so many books when I was going to like work. But his music, there's something about, in particular, this album, the Freudian album, that I really enjoy the storytelling and the composition of it. It mixes so many different styles. His voice is very, very... The way he uses his voice is fantastic. And the stories that he tells throughout the course of the entire album, and even within each song itself, it feels so interesting. It feels like you're peering into his mind almost. It's fascinating. I just want you to like listen to it and like see... and just hear what I hear. So yeah, this is it's not I'm setting up, but this also gives me time to set things up. This is Transformed by Daniel Caesar. Again, one of my favorite artists.